Welcome, it's Steve Light from Leading Light TV.
Got a special guest here today with me, Mike Vincent. Mike Vincent is a good friend of mine and also a world-class magician. And yeah, so how are you doing, Mike?
Oh, hello there, Steve. Thanks very much for having me on your program. I'm doing very well, actually. I'm a little jet-lagged. I've just come back from a tour of China, so I'm still recovering from my long trip, but otherwise I feel great. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, so I wanted to ask you a few questions, and, first of all, we were chatting casually at one time, and you said you were quite shy as a child, and I was just wondering if, you took up magic so you could have like a conversation starter or a way to impress people, if you like. Was that, if you'd like to speak a bit about that?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I think my shyness and my interest in magic are two separate things altogether. Okay. However, I do think that the magic did help me to overcome my reserved nature as a youngster. I think growing up as an only child, any only child will tell you this, you learn to become very self-reliant and you're in your own head and your own world a lot of the time. However, magic was certainly instrumental in encouraging me to talk and speak and engage with people. By the very nature, that's what it requires you to do. So I think on the one hand, it did support me in becoming a little bit more outgoing and gregarious in my nature. And at the same time, I feel it was a wonderful tool for developing my confidence as well.
Yeah. So what actually got you into magic in the first place?
Well, I saw David Nixon on television when I was 6 years old. Yeah. This was around 1970, and I was just captivated. I saw a lot of magicians on television, David Nixon being one, Doug Henning was another who I thought was terrific. So, as a youngster, seeing these amazing magicians do these amazing tricks was very interesting to me. And I became interested in learning it myself. And if you consider back in the 70s, there was no DVDs or videos. I did the logical thing and got books from the library. And there was a lot of books on magic in my local library just up the road from where I currently live. So that was my interest, and that's how it started. Those were the humble beginnings, for want of a better word.
Okay, so you got inspired by someone and you just really wanted to try it yourself. And
yeah, exactly, and I taught myself.
Yeah.
I taught myself literally from the ground up. It was like learning a foreign language to begin with. But somehow the books began to make sense to me, and I was able to interpret the written word into physical actions and create these amazing tricks for myself. Yeah.
So would you say that's the secret to your success, if you like? You had a real interest in what you're doing.
Well, I think the secret to my success, there are many components, but you've hit on the very first component, which is desire. I had a very strong desire to learn. I had a very curious nature, and I was intrigued by the feelings I experienced watching magicians, the astonishment. And I became really intrigued with trying to understand how the tricks were done. So I had a very inquisitive mind, I had a desire, and once I discovered my natural touch for it, all of that transpired and transformed into a real love and passion for the subject matter, the history of magic, the pursuit for technical mastery, and also when my presentation style evolved, I actually enjoyed the process of performing.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. There's many layers to magic as a subject, and what's beautiful about it as a subject is the personal development elements that come along for the ride. You know, there are many magicians who can do good tricks, but they can't perform to save their lives. And there are some magicians who can perform well but aren't good magicians. But to have the perfect marriage of the technical ability and the artistic delivery, now that's a really extraordinary combination. And I'm very fortunate in the regard that I think I perform well, I do the tricks well, and my audiences seem to like it. And I'm consistently working on improving all of those elements.
Yeah. So that brings me on to the next question, really. I see you as one of the most charismatic people I know, and when I talk to you, I feel good speaking to you, because it's like you're really present in what I'm saying. You're listening intently. You're interested in what people say when they're talking to you. It's just such a nice thing. So how do you feel that you went from quite a shy, only child to developing that kind of charisma?
Wow, that's an interesting question you've asked, because I think greater men before me have tried to put a definition and distinction. What is it, this magical element called charisma?
Yeah.
What is it? What is what is charisma? And it's funny, one of my favorite books in the English language is the dictionary. Okay, and whenever there's a word that I'd like to I want to get a better understanding of, I go straight to the dictionary, and I'm actually on my dictionary now, and it says charisma is a noun, and it's a compelling attractiveness or charm that can inspire devotion in others. Okay, another definition I came across was charisma is having a magical influence over others. Isn't that interesting? Magnetism, animal magnetism, allure, glamour, mystique, magic. Isn't it interesting how all of these words, presence, aura, personality, force of personality, strength of character, these are all components of what makes a great magician and human being. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it really is.
So when you ask me how did I go about developing these qualities, first and foremost, I think to have charisma is part of our DNA.
Yeah.
All of these qualities are within the DNA of every human being on this planet. It's just a question of what triggers it, what develops it, etc., etc. And it's just funny that I was engaged in a craft which forced me to, and I wasn't conscious of it, but it forced me to bring these qualities to the surface, even though I wasn't consciously aware of it at the time. Let me stress that. Yeah. So now that you've asked me the question, one of the best definitions landmark education, and being charismatic is all about being present. And you said it just a moment ago.
Yeah.
The ability to listen and be present in the moment with people that you're engaged with.
Yeah.
With nothing else going on in the background, so that people feel that they have your undivided attention.
Yeah.
Think about that for a moment. You're in the company of someone and you just know that they are fully engaged with you.
Yeah.
And they're listening to you, they're being with you. All of these qualities are required to be a great magician. So I would assert that my training in these elements were part and parcel of becoming a great magician, which then got transferred into my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Okay, because to be a good magician, to be a deceptive magician, a seductive magician, you've got to be able to draw people in and have people relax, calm, feeling safe and trusting that they're in the company of someone that they feel safe with. Okay, and to be able to get an audience or anyone to surrender themselves to the experience of being with you, this is a very wonderful skill to cultivate, I think. So I would say I actually learned all of this as part and parcel of my training in the world of magic, but also consider I wasn't conscious of it. It was just part of the journey, and you're actually getting me present to the process that I went through in order for this quality to be fully actualized. And consider it's already there, it just needed to be brought out.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you've just said, right. And it made me think about the times I've seen you perform. You're no different to when I'm just having a chat with you like now.
Yeah.
Because the way I see it, you're being yourself on stage. You're not a performer. You're just, you are performing something that you love doing, but you're not acting. You're just being yourself and being present with the audience. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, if you're absolutely right to say that now, and I'll be the first to hold my hand up and say 5 to 10 years ago that would not have been the case, because who I was then is nothing compared to the person you're speaking to right now. Because I've gone through my own cathartic psychoanalysis and transformation in the last 5 years. And this was very important to me because I just wanted to be more real and authentic in front of an audience, and more authentic with people in the world, in my world and out there. Because if there's one thing I've come to appreciate, when you meet somebody for the first time, you haven't really met them. What you've met is the face they want you to see.
Yeah.
It could take you several months before you get underneath the surface and really connect and bond with the person, and when they feel comfortable to share themselves with you, and vice versa, by the way. But it takes a lot of guts and courage to be authentic and real with someone in those first few set moments when you meet someone for the first time. That takes a lot of courage, but most people would find that pretty confronting, I would assert.
Yeah. Well, it really resonated when you said we all have innate charisma, and I think the more that I've become comfortable in myself, because as you know about, having a label of being shy and socially anxious myself, I always thought that I had to be someone who is really outgoing and confident and, talking all the time, and I had to turn into a different person. But the more I've worked on myself, I'm actually happy being the person that I am.
Yeah.
My charisma is coming out because I'm not worried about what I'm saying. I'm just being myself, and I think people are attracted to that. Just someone who's open and honest and present, and just honest about any hang-ups or whatever. Just being there and being themselves.
Well, yeah, you've just touched on something very interesting. One of the most attractive qualities that I find in people, and it's something that I'm engaging in a lot more myself, is a willingness to be vulnerable with people.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, there's a lot of people out there in the world who appear to have it all together. They look confident, they look successful, but really underneath the hood they're masking something. Some form of deep-rooted insecurity of not being good enough, not being liked enough.
Yeah.
And yet the very thing that would make them endearing and lovable is the willingness to say, you know what, I'm actually scared. I'm afraid that people won't like me. I'm afraid that I might not be successful. And being willing to share that. Do you realize before I go out on stage in front of every performance, I'm actually terrified? All right, because I don't know how the audience is going to respond. I know that I can do a good job. I know that I can do my performance well, but I don't know how the performance is going to go. I hope it will go well. I hope the audience will like the performance. I hope they will be entertained, but I can't guarantee it. That's beyond my control.
Yeah.
And me being a control freak that likes to control and manage everything, that's pretty confronting for someone with my personality and psychological makeup. Having said that, I've learned to surrender that and let it go and just be with the facts that I can do the job well, I can engage the audience, and I can hope for the absolute best. And that no matter what happens, I like to think that I can handle whatever shows up in the performance. Because it's a very vulnerable space to be in when you're in front of an audience. Equally as vulnerable as saying, going up to a girl for the first time, say, hey, I like you, I'd like to take you out for a date. And I'm just using that as a little example.
Yeah.
But the willingness to say that to someone and be real about it, that takes courage, and that you can be real and authentic with people, and they will be the same way with you. That's what I've noticed, certainly in my experience.
Yeah, definitely.
But somebody has to be willing to go first. And that's given me a lot of confidence, just the willingness to say, hey, how are you today? No matter what happens or what comes back, just the willingness to say, hi, how are you today? And I use that opening line everywhere I go. When I'm in a coffee shop, good morning, how are you today? And it's amazing. People light up, because I often find it quite intriguing when I say that to people in coffee shops, Starbucks, wherever. They're actually taken by surprise, which tells me very often they're ignored. They're ignored. And, what I got from that was that people are just hungry for acknowledgement. Please acknowledge me for just being here.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Oh, it does. It really does make sense. I try and do that quite regularly now, and when I was quite nervous before, I would hold back and not say it, and then just have an interaction and go, and nothing would happen. But the times that I stepped out of my comfort zone and asked how the person was doing, and one time I was chatting with someone at the post office, and it turned out his brother-in-law just had a kidney transplant.
Oh, interesting.
And he was really happy, and I shared with him about my transplant, and I just left feeling absolutely amazing, and the smile on his face as well. He was like, "Yeah, this is so good." He's been on dialysis for years, and now, he's recovering, and his eyes just lit up. And
I think,
as you said,
I think in that moment you actually gave him the opportunity to experience that life is okay. Because he could relate to you from an experience that he had but was uncertain about what would be the quality of life now. But you in your willingness to have that conversation with him, you provided him with an access to appreciate life from a whole new point of view.
Yeah. And it's that simple, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is.
So it makes me think about, people at checkouts, in Tesco or whatever. You see, a lot of the times I experience people who are just looking down, and they don't even ask the amount of money you have to pay and all that. And I hear a lot of people complain about that. Why aren't they friendly? But it won't hurt for someone who's buying the items to ask how they're doing.
Well, I have a simple philosophy in life: go first. My attitude in life is go first.
Yeah.
Don't wait.
That's great. That's such a simple philosophy, because I've hesitated so many times striking up a conversation. I had an urge to do it, but I kind of felt that I had to give myself permission to have a conversation, and then I'd wait for them to start, and it wouldn't happen, and it's just a missed opportunity to have that interaction with someone.
Exactly, and it's a very good skill and habit to cultivate, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm just going to move on to the next question, and it was regarding, you came and did a performance for my group a couple of years ago, and I can't quite remember the title, but you it was basically about the wonder of magic creating self-esteem in others. What did you mean by that?
I remember that performance very well. It's funny, when I did that performance for you, I had actually entered into a whole new space with my approach to how I want to use magic over and above conventional entertainment. It's one thing to stand up and tell jokes and make an audience laugh, and then that's the end of the show, but to present my show in such a way that not only do I entertain the audience, and not only do I stimulate them intellectually, but also emotionally and spiritually, create an atmosphere where their experience of life transforms as a result of having experienced my show. Now, how does that work? A magician is supposed to fool you. He's supposed to do things you can't explain. And yet here I am talking about using that context to create a whole new appreciation of life and the world that people live in. That seems a bit of a paradox, doesn't it? Well, I'd like you to consider, when a magician, any magician, if they're a good one, when they perform, if they do the job well, yes, they will be entertained. Yes, they will gasp with astonishment. But let's look at the feel-good factor that happens as a result of seeing something amazing. Laughter creates endorphins in the body. The feeling of astonishment can actually create a wonderful sensation in the body, which has tremendous healing qualities. Okay? I've had experiences performing magic where I've reduced people to tears, women.
Wow.
And they were uplifted as a result. It was so profound a moment. One woman burst into tears. I'll never forget it. I did a trick at a wedding fair. She hired me on the spot for her wedding. Okay? And in the context of the time that I work for you, given the fact that you work with people who suffer from social anxieties, I created my show in such a way for you that the experience of magic would help people to forget the challenges that they experience with social anxiety. Because what I remember from that performance was everybody had a good time, they were laughing, they were joking, and I just got them present to the fact that while they were laughing and experiencing my show, they were not entertaining their internal dialogue about, I'm not confident in social settings.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, definitely.
So while they were having that experience, the conversations that they would normally have was, oh my God, I'm surrounded by people I don't know. Oh my God, how am I going to fit in? Oh my God, do I look right? Oh my God, am I good enough? That conversation disappeared. This is the healing qualities I'm talking about, because I got the group present to the fact that while we were all engaged in this magical conversation, there was no other conversation going on other than, wow, this is great, I'm enjoying this. And I'd like you to consider something else, Steve. Given the fact that you're involved in this line of work, have you considered that people who suffer with social anxieties do so because of the story they tell themselves about why they're not confident in social situations?
Yeah.
It's just a story. And what's intriguing about the story they tell themselves is, who created that story in the first place?
Yeah.
The individual. Now, is that story true? If they believe it to be true, perhaps they can get back to the originating source when that story was created in the first place. I can tell you from first-hand experience, I suffered a lot of bullying at school.
Yeah.
Every day when I was at school was a fight for survival, literally. Okay, and I needed to find a way to fight back. So my social anxiety, for want of a better word, was I didn't trust people. And I hated being around people for fear of being physically attacked or psychologically abused.
Yeah.
All right. So if I hadn't studied magic, that story and that conversation would have stayed with me right up until this point in my life. But the fact that I became a magician, it forced me to engage in a totally different conversation. Pick a card, put it back in the pack. Ta-da! There's your card. Wow, how did you do that? Once I got that reaction, something happened to me psychologically. A brand new conversation. Wow, Michael, if you could become a great magician, you could survive the fear and terror of being physically abused and psychologically victimized. You get that?
Yeah, I totally do. Yeah.
So I've now given you the access and the source as to why I've become one of the best magicians on the planet. My motivating factor was fear.
Yeah, well, that's definitely one of the biggest drivers to anything, isn't it?
Yeah. I should point out that I've managed to transform that conversation. I'm not motivated by fear anymore. I've returned to the source of why I got involved with magic in the first place. I actually love the subject. It's a beautiful subject. I'm passionate about the subject. And I'm also passionate about my place in the history of magic. Do you get that? You know, when people talk about British magicians, if they mention my name, I'll be happy with that.
That's amazing. So that's like bigger than yourself. That's like your legacy.
Yes, exactly right. You know, I'm committed to leaving the craft of magic better than I found it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the context I've created for myself.
Wow, that's so inspiring. Wow.
Thank you.
So, just to kind of wrap things up, wanted to ask you, what piece of advice, one piece of advice would you give anyone who's listening to this, whether they're suffering with social anxiety, lack of confidence, whatever it may be, and it's, holding them back in life, what would you say to them?
Well, let's use this conversation as an example. All right, you come to me and you say, Mike, I don't have much confidence. Here's my question to you, and it's a very simple question. And anyone listening to this recording afterwards, I'd like them to ask themselves this question if they're encountering any similar challenges. What do you need to believe in order to experience and feel what you're experiencing and feeling right now in the moment? Because if you're experiencing any feelings of lack or uncertainty about yourself, or you're shy, what do you need to believe in order for that to be real for you right now in the moment? Think about what I've just said. What answer would you give me?
Well, I guess I would have to believe that I'm not good enough. I'm not worth that person getting to know me, or something along those lines.
That's a very good response. Now, by you saying that to me, my next question to you would be, is that the truth? Do you really believe that you're not good enough? That you're not worth getting to know? Now that's a yes or no answer, right? Because some people may actually say, yes, I do believe that. My next response would be, why? Where did that story come from in the first place?
Yeah.
And then I would then begin to get under the hood of the situation, and it would take me a little bit longer than the time frame we have for this conversation. But I don't want to give an answer to the question you've asked me, because that would be just a very simple sentence like, oh, get out of yourself and go out and socialize more. No. If people are shy and they lack confidence, it's only because of the story they tell themselves about why they believe they're shy and lack confidence.
Yeah.
Because I believe with every fiber of my being that confidence, creativity, social engagement, the joy of life, this is part of our DNA. We were not born shy. We were not born lacking of confidence. We were born happy, ready, willing, able, and capable to experience all of that life has to offer us. Okay? And if you look at little children, up to about the first 4 years of life, they are full of curiosity, full of adventure, full of the joy of being. And then something happens that interrupts that moment for them, and they begin to question the reality of life as it occurs for them. Yeah. They then construct a way of being, a new identity to survive the perceived threat that life apparently imposed on them. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Right. So, anyone that says to me that they're not confident and they're shy, I said, really? Oh, interesting. Well, it took a lot of confidence for you to say that in the first place.
Yeah.
All right, so I beg to differ. What are you really saying to yourself about you being shy? So my feeling is, to answer your question in a nutshell, what would I say? I would just say, ask yourself, what do you need to believe in order to experience and feel what you're feeling right now? And then just get authentic about your response. And I think you'll find a lot of answers. To your challenges. You know, and another thing I would inquire into, has there ever been a moment in your life where you weren't being shy or you were being confident? If you can pinpoint those moments, you'll find the seedlings of a new experience, a new way of being in the world that could support you right now in this moment. Because some people are more invested in their story than they are in actually being powerful and creative. Do you get that?
Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of people don't know that they don't know there's two masters at work. They think the story that they're telling themselves is real, and that's their experience of life. I tell you what, once you get present to the fact that you are the author and the architect of your own story, life transforms and life will never be the same again. Because you're now in a position to choose to create a brand new script for yourself. Anyone listening to this program that suffers of any form of social anxiety, I'd like you to consider the possibility that you were born happy. All you need to do now is remember.
Wow, Mike, that's so powerful. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, mate. And I want to acknowledge you again for your willingness to bring this quality of conversation out there into the virtual world of the internet, because I think if there's one thing I love about the internet, as viral as it is, we can reach a target audience a lot quicker than conventional advertising and marketing. All right, so I really want to acknowledge you for doing this, because I can see with what you're doing, you're going to transform the quality of life for a lot of people. And I'm really thrilled and privileged that you've invited me to be a part of this conversation. And I really hope that our time together makes a difference to anyone that listens to it, okay?
Cheers, Mike. It's been so awesome speaking to you. Really appreciate it, man.